Well, hello everybody and welcome to what is the afternoon session of the Doing Sport Differently live stream. I'm Steve Pallas and today I'm really pleased to be joined by two special guests, Michelle Harris from Gippsport and Ryan Evans from Boisdale-Briagolong Football Netball Club. Welcome to you both.
Great to be here, Steve.
Yeah, fantastic to join you.
Yeah, Michelle, Gippsport. Now, many of our viewers wouldn't know of the Gippsport and the wonderful work that it does. So do you want to give us a little bit of a background on Gippsport, please?
Yeah, sure. So we live in country Victoria in Gippsland, and we're the Regional Sports Assembly, and we cover an area of 6 local government areas. And we have a team of staff that work in a range of ways to support community sporting clubs, increase physical activity, work in health promotion, and really anything we can do to help the community be strong and healthy.
Fantastic. And regional sports assemblies are actually unique to Victoria. And they're a great initiative in Victorian regional sport. And I guess one of the beneficiaries, Ryan, is the Boisdale-Briagolong football netball. So you might want to just give us a bit of a where in the country is that located?
Yeah, sure. I'm sure not many of the listeners today would probably heard of either Boisdale or Briagolong. They're two very small regional towns in Gippsland. Probably the largest towns near us are Maffra and Sale. So we draw players from those towns as well. But yeah, we're down in East Gippsland parts of the world.
The clubs may be small, the towns may be small, but the story of your journey and evolution over the last couple of years is extraordinary. And I really look forward to telling that or listening to you tell that story. And it starts with, it's not about the creation of a women's football team, but it starts with the creation of a women's football team. Do you want to give us a little bit of background as to why you started it and the journey it started to take you on?
Yeah, sure. It's a bit of a new venture that the women's teams. We've actually got both a women's team and a youth girls team, and we've had them since 2018, and they've certainly been some of the best things that have happened to the club for us in recent times. It started, the catalyst, I guess, was one of our players, or one of our netball players and junior footballers came to us, young Maddie, and asked at one of our committee meetings if we'd consider getting youth girls and women's team up and running. It was probably a natural progression, really, with Boisdale and Briagolong being quite small community areas, almost through necessity. Our girls have been encouraged to play football. So we've had a lot of young girls come through playing junior football. And afterwards, there hasn't really been many options available to them, except for maybe a little bit of school football. So yeah, when Maddie came into the committee meeting, we jumped at the chance, knowing we had somebody keen, and she talked about a few other girls she'd bring with her, and we had some really good people on our committee. Belinda Marshall and Kenny Marshall took on the roles of the team's manager and also the football development manager and coach for that year. And yeah, before we knew it, we had both the women's team and youth girls team up and running.
So what competitions, because my understanding is that they're the only women's and youth teams in your shire. Is that
That's
true?
right, yeah. So Gippsland's a really wide area,
Yep.
so it does cover a lot of distance. So there is a lot of travel involved with our games. We're the only team based in the Wellington Shire, but there are other teams around different LGAs within Gippsland. So we do travel. You know, there are some very long journeys down to Nyora and Bunyip and a few other locations. But yeah, it has changed a bit over time. But there's normally about 6 teams in the first 2 years participating. We're hoping those teams will extend in number over the next couple of years.
So, Michelle, just generally through the Gippsland area, we've seen an explosion over the last, say, 5 years of women and girls playing traditional male sports, whether it's the rugbies or AFL, soccers, etc. Are you seeing that across the board in Gippsland, or it's still Ryan's club's still just a leader, an early leader in that space at the moment?
There certainly was an explosion of women playing football. There was huge growth in a very short amount of time. We also have very strong levels of soccer participation, right through youth girls to senior levels as well. We have a women's only soccer club actually that commenced a few years back in Latrobe City. We've seen a really strong increase in golf participation as well. A lot of the local golf clubs that are really working or have been working with us on new programs to get women involved and governance changes. So I think clubs like bowls and also golf as well, resetting up their constitutions and governance structures to ensure there's more women on their boards and committees. And I think this doing sport differently approach and a lot of the social sport options really create that fun, supportive environment for clubs to really create a really supportive environment for all people to try sport. And that's flowing through to the older age groups. Unfortunately, 2020 hasn't been fantastic for sport participation, but it's been fantastic to see sport getting going again. And in particular, we've noticed an increase in girls cricket already this season, which is fantastic to see. So lots of opportunities for women and girls to play sport. How you communicate that is really important, and we're here to support that through the different levels of governance and things like that that clubs might need to do as well.
I'll come back to the communication as we go through the discussion, but I'll come back to the point that you raised, which is the governance side of it and the leadership side. So when young Maddie came to the committee the first time, what was the number of females that you had on the committee at that stage, Ryan?
We're lucky we've always been in a position that we've had quite a few females attracted to the committee. We've actually normally been fairly even split over recent years. If you go back to maybe the late turn of the decade, or even in the 2000s, there's probably more generalistic males. We have had plenty of females. Around the year that the two female teams came in, I did change the committee structure though, and we brought in an executive committee, because one thing I've found with some clubs that have brought in teams or female teams, they haven't had the support structure to make sure that they're being considered with all club decision making. So I brought in an executive committee, which consisted of myself as a president, the secretary, and a treasurer. And then we also had 3 vice presidents who were also managers of their respective departments. So we had a men's football manager, a women's football manager, and a netball manager. And we now have an executive of 3 males, 3 females, plus an even split of male and female members on a general committee.
So when the girls came to the committee and said, we'd like to start a football team, any negativity from the committee, any pushback, any challenges, any barriers, any walls that went up? Or is it just the fact that you've got that impetus, okay, let's go with it?
I think we had the right people. There was probably concerns a little bit in terms of the extra support that we required with the women's games being played on Sundays. It obviously put a little bit more work on our volunteers, that they had to do a bit more, but it also just meant we had to go tap on a few people's shoulders. And so any fears were very quickly diminished as we progressed and got things up and running. So there's nothing too much to worry about. And I guess we had a very proactive committee. So we had people really keen to push it and see it through. And I was really keen to see the women's teams up and running. So I guess we're in a fortunate position that we embraced it as soon as it came in, and it all came together in a very short process.
Well, when you say you embraced it, what I find just inspiring about the story was it wasn't you just didn't embrace the team, you immediately elevated the team to be equal within the club. So you created opportunities for them to be seen in the same eyes and the same level of importance as the men's team, who might have been around in their respective guises for a century or so previously.
Yeah, about that time period too. We're celebrating 50-year premierships and all kinds of things next season. So yeah, the men's teams had been around for a while, but I think it's really important to acknowledge all your participants in a club and how they do. And that's why the first year was also a learning process for us. That we were lucky we had really good support. So the games, particularly when we had the dual youth girl game followed by the women's games, were fairly well attended when they played at home, our home venue at Boisdale. It was just, I guess we've got a really inclusive committee at Briagolong, as well as at Mafra, where we draw many players from. So we actually had pretty good crowds. A little bit harder when you're traveling to Nyora and Bunyip, so they didn't have quite as much support there. But certainly, I think by the time the grand final came around, AFL Gippsland, I think, was certainly surprised about the number of supporters we were able to get there, and buses, and really good. So I think from that side of the support was there initially. It was probably over the following year and the pre-season afterwards, we realised probably some gaps that needed fixing. And probably the biggest gap was the girls trained on different nights and they played on different days than the rest of the club. So there seemed to be a bit of a gap. So we needed to put a few things in process to make sure that those gaps were made so that they could feel more inclusive at Boisdale-Briagolong. So we did a few things like scheduling a club launch event. So before the season started, we got all our teams and members together to celebrate all the teams and acknowledge who was going to be coaches and things like that. We ensure our red and black ball, which is held every year, was held on a Saturday night when there was no women's football the next day on a Sunday, and we have joint vote counts and presentation nights. Probably the biggest change was actually suggested by our men's senior coach at the time, which I think's worked really well, is we now actually have our male and our female teams training on the oval together on Tuesday nights. So we'll have our youth girls and our under-17 boys training together. They do the warm-ups together and maybe a drill or two, and then they work around each other on the ground. It's the same with our male and our female our senior teams. So they'll start off on the ground together. They got to know each other through warm-ups and things like that. So I think hopefully, the women have felt more embraced by the club to be involved with the club. And so we've actually started to see them attend a lot more social events, get involved with much more of the stuff that happens, alongside the club as well.
And Michelle, that's so important. We see when new teams are added, it doesn't matter, or new teams or new formats, if barefoot bowls and bowls as an example, are added to clubs, they're kind of often bolted on and left to their own guises. But it's so important to embrace them as into the team and into the culture and into the operations of the club, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the club support work that Gippsport does one-to-one with the clubs is that often there's really fantastic intention of creating an inclusive and supportive environment for women and girls, but they're not exactly sure how to go about it.
Yeah.
So the Quick Wins checklist is a really great tool that we've used over the last few years, that we sit down with clubs and ask them questions about how they consider, how they recognise the players in their club. So Ryan mentioned presentation nights. One of the key things that comes up is when you walk into a clubhouse and you see only premiership boards or memorabilia for the men's, from only the men's teams. And that can be a real simple way to, I guess, bring about gender equality in the club, is showcasing some of the women also. So real practical on the ground suggestions. It might also be exactly what Ryan mentioned as well, is bringing family nights into your club. So instead of having a male dominated event of team selections, you might turn it into a family night and actually read out the netball teams or the women's football teams at the same time. And not only does that help the income for the club, which is selling more meals and things like that, it creates an enormous community connection with your local town where you live and brings more people in and more members and support. So there's a lot of positive news stories that can come out of being more inclusive. The other one I really like is, from a governance perspective, is diversity on your board. Yeah. If you can include some young people or some women, you can broaden out the thinking involved in your club, and you might have some new solutions to problems that you might have been facing, or some new ideas for sponsors, or even more fun ways to get the community connected. It's a great way to be, and we're all struggling to find volunteers. So if you can, women are 50% of the population, so if you can recruit some women to your board, not only will you get some awesome new ideas, but you'll have some more volunteers as well.
Oh, unquestionably, it's never made any sense to me that 50% of the population haven't been, treated differently for whatever reason. And it does go both ways. I mean, I've spent my life around netball clubs with 3 daughters and have seen it the other way. But empowering women to have the confidence to go onto the leadership positions into clubs is becoming a real focus. And Gippsport's created a really cool program to facilitate that. Do you want to just give us a little bit of background to the changing Gippsport game? Gippsland game program.
Yeah, we are really lucky here in Gippsland that we've received a lot of support through Vic Health and Change Our Game to develop our women's programs. So we have a couple of ways that we do that. So we tend to think of our women's leadership program. So it's Changing Gippsland's Game. So we have a group of 55 women from across Gippsland meeting bi-monthly and are doing professional development activities, governance training and networking to bring about I guess, enhanced skill and confidence to take on board positions or coaching roles or official promotions, perhaps to step up to that next level of competition. And we've found that fantastic in terms of a supportive environment to give women or empower women to take that step up to perhaps a president's role, or challenging the way things have always been done and thinking outside the square. So that's absolutely fantastic from a women's leadership point of view. And the other way we like to increase physical activity participation is through our Gippy Girls Can program. So we've been lucky enough to receive support to, I guess, boost up the This Girl Can big campaign in Gippsland. So we have our own social media and marketing campaign that celebrates women trying a whole range of sport or physical activity or hiking or different ways throughout our Gippsland community. And it's been absolutely huge success with over 2,000 followers and women who have never been active taking up new types of programs, just meeting up with our staff or meeting other people in the community to give sport a try. It's just been really fantastic to see.
Oh, unquestionably, I think it's a great program. And Ryan, your club, you've got 50% gender representation on the board and on the executive now at your club.
That's right, we do. As I mentioned before, we've always been encouraged women to get in there and take leadership roles. Particularly, I've often worked with women. When I was a secondary teacher, there were, I think, 75% of my staff members that I got on well with were all female. So I've seen females thrive with leadership. So we've got a couple of young girls, Ali and Rachel Weatherly, who have just taken on netball management positions, as well as been on the committee, and they've already taken onus on taking leadership and they're running an exercise where they're upgrading the netball department. So yeah, we certainly promote as much as we can.
Fantastic. And Michelle mentioned just the Gippsport quick wins checklist. And so you use the checklist within your club. And what changes did you make as a result of using the Gippsport checklist in your club?
Yeah, that's right. We actually found the checklist really helpful. We knew we had put a few really good support structures in place, but it actually helped us identify some gaps. And Michelle just mentioned imagery, and it is so important how you present your club. If you go to our Facebook page, for instance, the first image you'll see of our club is one player representative from each of our teams. So from our senior male and junior male and female team. So everybody's there, equal standing. That's who we represent as a club. So it's those kind of pictures. It's also, as you mentioned, around the club rooms. We actually updated all our boards. So we've had years of history. We've all put onto the one board and moved across. We've added a different board in a similar prominent position where it lists all the women's teams, the netball team. So how we put that around the club, the flags have been rearranged, the photos that have gone up on the wall. It's just not celebrating the big premiership male win from 20 years ago. It's everything's up there equally. And our female teams have actually had a bit of success in their first 2 years going through as undefeated premiers and champions. So we're probably a bit too strong at the moment, but definitely needs to be recognised. And the other thing was also, when we talk about imagery, is we've spent COVID creating football cards. So all our male and female players have all got their own card, or anyone we had a photo of, and we're actually going to print those cards out. And as the junior season starts, we're going to put cards into our show bags for our junior club. So they'll actually have cards of male and female players, and hopefully aspire to get into our senior teams at some stage. So yeah, imagery's really been helpful, speaking to Gippsport. And the other thing was, I guess I hadn't considered it as a bloke. Some of the factors that contribute to whether women can get to training and what might affect their ability to get to games. And kids is a really big one, because quite often, women have that role, and blokes are taking a bigger hand at this sometimes now too, but they often have children in tow, and if you don't have the facilities to support women bringing and men bringing children to games, and it makes it really difficult. So we kind of identified that using the checklist, and since then we've actually created better play spaces, so fencing to keep kids safe. We've added a kitchenette to the netball rooms where there's a microwave to warm up babies' bottles and anything else that might need. So hopefully we've created an environment which is more accepting to get more kids there, so that women can actually get to more trainings and games.
Yeah, fantastic. And what was the effect for the players, the female players, when the club did make these significant changes to the aesthetics, the photos and the flags and the honour boards. Did they care?
I believe so. It's been one of those, as we mentioned before, 2020 has been a really funny year. So we only got those couple of trainings in, but we've definitely had positive feedback from those that have come into the rooms. We're certainly looking forward to unveiling a lot of this in the coming months, with pre-season training starting up due to the COVID restrictions being relaxed a bit. But yeah, certainly, I've received positive feedback. They need to be updated anyway, I think, when you have that equal representation around the club. So we're probably at a stage where we're unveiling them. So in the next couple of months. So yeah, certainly looking forward to that.
And one topic or one initiative that you created, if you would just share the story, the backstory as to why you created your Pride round with one of your competitor clubs. It's a fantastic story.
Yeah, so we pride ourselves in being an inclusive club, and I can't take any credit for this one. We've got a really good female football manager in Belinda Marshall, and a few girls that work with her. And after some of our players received some homophobic remarks on the football field, one of our games, we needed to show our support to make sure that we didn't tolerate that kind of thing. Even if it wasn't our own players doing it, we needed to show that it just simply wasn't on it. And we contacted that club, and to their credit, they took it on board as well, and they understood and they supported it wholeheartedly as well. So the next time we came about, we actually, both teams, we played a Pride round. So we had jumpers made up. We had people to talk about, the importance of being inclusive, regardless of your gender identity or your sexual orientation, that everyone, needs to be inclusive. And I think it was probably a really good start. It was something I know other leagues have done, men's leagues, but it's probably, I think, as a club, we felt that we needed to get something up and running to make sure we support all of our players. And as I said, to the credit of the other team too, it was really good to get them on board as well. Not acknowledge the behaviour that had happened and deal with it, and then to obviously promote positive outcomes going forward.
It's just fantastic, Ryan, and your club should be congratulated. Excuse my phone coming off. Congratulated that it turned a negative experience into a legacy of a positive messaging from your club. But Michelle, the experiences of the LGBTIQ community in sport hasn't always been one of feeling of safety and that they can participate in sport, is it? And we're seeing that now change slowly over time.
Yeah, I guess the Pride round is a great example of how community sport can be utilised to bring awareness to particular issues that might exist in the community, and really in a positive way showcase how everyone can be welcomed and supported in a club environment. And we're really lucky here at Gippsport that we have a really strong partnership with a range of stakeholders, whether it be state sporting associations, Pride Cup, Change Our Game, and a range of other providers, Gippsland Women's Health. And we really like to, I guess, highlight these opportunities. So something similar we're doing at the moment is Orange Round, and highlighting the 16 days of activism to improve gender equality in the local community. And unfortunately, we have to do that mainly through social media in 2020. But in the past, we've done it through a partnership with AFL and Netball Victoria and other organisations. So that's another way we've done awareness raising in the community, and really helps to make that link between gender equality in sport and in the community, and how we can hopefully prevent men's violence against women down the track, or at least create a healthier community.
Absolutely. If we start to cast our mind forward to clubs that are listening and thinking, yeah, it's time for us to create opportunities for women to participate, or different groups within their community, or to just bring more formats, so to their competitive formats that they might be solely offering, such as the social formats. When the clubs contact you and wanting to go down this journey, where do you start them off? Yeah,
so in the last 2 years, we actually completed 38 quick wins checklists, and quite a few of those were local soccer clubs. And it's been really fantastic to see since the easing of restrictions. Unfortunately, soccer is predominantly a winter sport. But since we've been able to get going again, we've been able to see some girls-only youth soccer programs, which are club-led, which is absolutely fantastic. And we've also seen 2 local soccer associations get together and plan out a youth girls soccer competition, which is a completely different format in partnership. And that is a really great outcome of the Quick Wins checklist and the work that we've done with Gippsport with soccer over the years in partnership with Football Victoria. So I think putting the information out there, a checklist can help. Obviously, one-to-one club support. So when we go and meet with clubs face-to-face and work with them, we can help identify opportunities and support those with social sport offerings if we're able to. But I think clubs are really being proactive in this space too, that they see that they would like to see more women and girls playing sport in their clubs and looking for new ways to create that safe, welcoming, easy program. Because I guess clubs are often worried they won't have enough players to make it viable.
Yep.
So, we need 11 people to play a side, but there's actually great versions of the game that you can create with small numbers. And you just start small, make it fun, and then they'll share the good news stories with their friends and then bring more people along. And so just start off in any way that you can. And before you know it, you'll end up with a women's team like Boisdale. And it's a great success story. And it just starts with a few people creating, I guess, having the idea, creating the program, reaching out for help through Gippsport and their State Sporting Association and other organisations, and just say, let's give it a try. And I think even more now than ever, the COVID cliche, I suppose, is that people want to return to being active, more healthy, connecting with their community, supporting their community sporting clubs that have had a really tough year. So I think we'll build on that and really see the benefits through 2021 of more people playing sport and a more equal playing field.
Yeah, and it only takes one, is what you said. And Ryan, you just had a couple of junior players approach the committee, and now look what's happened. I'll ask you, with the benefit of hindsight, what's the difference in your club now than what it was before you had the women's teams, or the women's and youth?
Probably less blokey, if you know what I mean. It's good to have a wide range of people involved with the club. I think football in particular has been traditionally a blokey environment. It has slowly changed over the years, particularly with the addition of netball teams coming in to make them football netball clubs, but it's probably more supportive of the male game a lot of the time, depending on the club. I think we've just had a lot more people coming in the club, lots of new faces. You have a club and you tend to be similar faces every year, but we've had a wide range of people come in. And it's not just the women's team. We've actually had additional sponsors who want to support the women's team. So we've had a wide range of people come in, and even the Pride game, people I hadn't seen at the club before. It was wonderful to welcome in a whole lot more people and create an environment which we think is suitable for everyone coming in.
And what we now know, with the benefit of hindsight, and I'm going to talk generally because I can't talk for your club, but less blokey doesn't mean that it's a worse experience for the blokes that were playing, does it?
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's much more positive experience more generally, isn't it?
It is. And I said people are more comfortable bringing their families there. So when I say less blokey, blokes have wives, they have sisters, they have daughters. And so if they feel comfortable bringing them into the club, it's a positive experience. So
they get to stay longer.
Yeah, exactly. Can be a really good thing.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that, and this is the real positive coming out of the experience, is that yes, they're less blokey. We're moving away from that blokey men's club sort of culture, but it's actually improving the experience for the men. The men and the existing participants, they're not pushing back, and they're not being reduced in the value that they're getting from their club. It's actually being enhanced by engaging all of the community in the club. And that's such a wonderful message that's come out of this from my perspective, Ryan. So thank you so much for sharing your journey, your knowledge, and your experience.
Yeah, no problems. As I said, it's been a real positive for the club, and I encourage anyone listening today, if they don't have a women's team, if they don't have a junior girls team, get them up and running. Like it can be a really positive experience for your club. As I said, it'll bring more people through the gates. It'll actually create an environment which is inclusive for all and really good for your club, and it'll help with your club sustainability going forward. So yeah, I really encourage clubs to do what they can to get female teams up and running.
Fantastic. And Michelle, the Gippsport website, if they want to find out more information about Gippsport, the programs that you're running, the resources that you've got in the checklist, where can they go to get access to those great resources?
Yeah, absolutely. So www.gippsport.com.au, and you'll find information about the regional sport program, including the quick wins checklist on there. You'll also find information about our women's leadership program, Changing Gippsland's Game. And Gippy Girls Can actually has its own website and social media pages as well. So jump on board there. And there is some, in addition to what Gippsport offers, there's also some fantastic resources from a range of places in creating women and girls programs. So we can point you in the right direction for those, or you can just search them up as well. State Sporting Association or National Sporting Association and places like that. So yeah, don't be too scared, reach out, and there'll be lots of people around who will be willing to support you in your journey.
And remember, it only takes one person to start the ball rolling. So Michelle Harris, Senior Sports Consultant at Gippsport, and Ryan Evans, President of the Boisdale-Briagolong Football Netball Club, thank you so much for being part of our sports community.